Okay, everybody. No, I'm not in the library. I know it looks like I'm in the library, but I'm not. It's just chroma key. 2 years ago, it's just as we were getting started with this York County Democratic Party YouTube show thing, the YCDP TV. 2 years ago, we did a bunch of programs focusing on the culture wars that were in the county council and the bludgeon that they were using or trying to use on the York County libraries. Tom Audette, one of the council members, was bringing up books and saying, these books are pornographic and they're terrible and shouldn't be in the library. And he got all of the right-wing people to come into the county council and yell and complain about it. And other folks recognized what was going on and said, well, this can't stand. We have to stop this. So we did a bunch of programs on that. And then I cast them adrift. They had to do things themselves to work on what was going on in the library. It is time for us to catch up. So this program is the library update. I know I usually do enigmatic titles. This is not an enigmatic title. I guess I don't feel that creative today. A library update right here on the program that we like to call YCDP TV. And here are the folks joining me to give us our update. Tell you what, in a moment, I'm going to play a little video that I made that will catch us up from 2 years ago. We did like 4 or 5 programs about this, hours and hours long. I don't want to make you watch all of those. If you want to, you can. It's on our YouTube channel. You can go watch them. But I've got a little 5-minute introduction or recap of what went on 2 years ago, and then we'll catch up. But before we do that, Lacey Lane, you've been on the program before, so welcome back. And
thank you for having us.
And would you introduce the other 2 folks that we've got on our panel?
Yeah, so I'm Lacey Lane. I'm I don't know what you want to call me, community organizer locally. First and foremost, I'm a mom of 2. I'm an educator of 17 years.
You're a rabble rouser.
And supporter. I do love to make good trouble, and it's certainly the time for it. And so I got connected with Laura Cato and Stephanie Griffith in regards to the advocacy work I was doing with our York County libraries, like you said, started back in the summer of 2023. So we've been at it for a while now, but they helped us to get organized, get formalized, and to really build more of an online presence where people can find out the information that they need when it comes to happenings with our York County Library Board of Trustees and the evil doing that's been happening and the attacks on our intellectual freedom and our LGBTQ plus community.
Okay, Laura, tell me a little bit about who you are.
Okay, I'm also a mother of 2 right here in Fort Mill, and I'm just an avid library lover. We go every week. I'm an avid reader. My kids have become avid readers. We love the library staff. We know most of them by name now, and they know us. And we came from Charlotte, or Huntersville, technically. So we were used to a bigger library. So I had said a couple of times online, am I the only one who thinks our libraries are, the size of a postage stamp? And all of a sudden everybody said, well, oh yeah, it really is. And so Lacey and Stephanie saw that and looped me in to help us hopefully someday get bigger, better libraries.
Okay, thank you. And Stephanie, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm also a mother of 2, a homeschool mom, and have moved to Fort Mill area 8 years ago, where we were avid library goers in our Anne Arundel County library in Maryland, where we had 14 different branches of library in our county. So coming to Fort Mill, the public library is our school library. And so we have used it a lot. And I wish it was bigger and better. They do great with what they have, but we moved here like all the other thousands of people that continue to move into York County, and our library should be reflective of that.
All right. And this is the group that you guys are members of. It's called Support YCL, Support York County Libraries. This is a Facebook group. It's a private group, but if people want to find you and join that group if they're interested, that's the place to go. Do you have any other online presence or location that can point people to?
Yes, we have a public page, Support YC Library public Facebook page. We also have a website, growyclibraries.com.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
And an Instagram account as well. And then we're in the works with getting a YouTube channel set up. So we'll be able to put this video on there.
Okay, excellent. I'd be glad to have you do it. It's going to be on the York County Democratic Party webpage or YouTube, webpage and YouTube channel and all that. But I'd be glad to have it distributed everywhere. We're always looking for more people to watch the shows. And I'll be glad to help you with any of the YouTube stuff that you guys want to do.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's kind of my thing. Lacey, I know you, and I don't know about Laura and Stephanie, are in other groups like CAPE, the Community Advocates for Public Education. So, like I say, you're a troublemaker. You got your fingers every place. All right, let's look at that history. Again, 2 years ago, things were getting started. It was a big culture war thing. So a little 5-minute compilation that will bring us up to speed. Let's watch that. And this is episode 7, Explicitly a Library.
A picture of a nude man.
Transgender material, deviant material.
Books that are unsuitable for children.
Jesus said
sexually explicit content.
sexually explicit books in the library, inappropriate materials.
Inappropriate books.
Sexually explicit material.
Sexually inappropriate material.
On here is a naked picture drawing of a naked man fully exposed, a naked woman fully exposed.
I'm here with Katie.
Hi.
We are at the Fort Mill Public Library.
Pink, blue, and you.
It was right here in our library here at Baxter, and this is the spread that he was most offended by and made sure he pointed it out.
And our kids and our grandchildren are seeing this content. This is unacceptable.
What they really mean is gender identity.
Right.
Transgender material.
They've been very careful not to use the word ban.
The Bare Naked book.
Naked baby butt.
Yeah, we're in trouble now.
Nude children, penises, vaginas. I love books like this because it helps illustrate that all bodies are different. No body is made the same.
To me, this is unacceptable.
County Council does not decide what books get placed on the shelves at the library. That would be handled by the director and the Board of Trustees.
When we take away open representation of people, we are opening the question of their safety. Are the protests of individuals such as LGBTQ unfit to be seen by children? Is their existence unwelcome simply because someone finds them offensive?
As librarians, we strive to have spaces and collections that are inclusive of everyone. Our collections reflect and celebrate the diversity of the human experience.
Our library should be a place where people of all ages can come to learn, explore, and discover new ideas without fear of censorship.
I respect parents' or guardians' rights to monitor their child's literature intake. I don't want them to monitor mine.
It's been noted that we don't get to decide where the books are. Go to the board, the library board, have that discussion with them. And it's our job to hire a library director.
I make a motion to deny the appeal for Twas the Night Before Pride.
At its June 8th meeting, the York County Library Board of Trustees voted unanimously to reject the requests for reconsideration of 4 books. They are opting not to relocate children's books to the adult section.
Council to consider first reading of an ordinance to specify that all district-specific appointments shall be required to maintain their residence in the district appointment throughout the duration of the term of appointment or be subject to immediate removal and replacement. And any countywide appointee moving out of the county shall be grounds for a board member's immediate removal and replacement.
But wait, there's more.
Council to consider first reading of an ordinance to reduce the size of the county library board.
We're reducing it by the at-large members.
Why are we reducing from 10 to 7, getting rid of the at-large seats?
Reducing the committee to voting members from the districts is consistent with what the other boards have. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 5-2.
So, you have a library board that's acting independently, maybe doing some things that most of the county council members don't like. But those county council members don't want to overtly micromanage the affairs of the library board. So, maybe we shake that board up a little.
New at 6, questions and concerns about a plan to shrink the size of a local library board.
It's the makeup of county council that's going to determine who's on the board.
Council voted in favor of reducing the board from 10 people to 7.
This is happening everywhere. These culture wars, this fight against inclusive materials.
Just because someone doesn't like a vote that the board has taken, now it goes over to, well, let's reduce the board. Let's call it what it is. This is someone's agenda to remove books, to censor books.
As I was coming onto the library board, that's when I started hearing some rumblings about there being some political maneuvers among county council members about who they were agreeing to appoint.
Then we take the majority of what our district wants, and that's our vote.
I think it's telling, though, that they seem to be under this misconception that they're going to tell the library board what the library board is going to do.
Our role is to appoint members to boards. And when you appoint members to boards, they're going to probably closely align with your view. If you look at the library board, does it closely align with our view? Maybe, maybe not. It's up to council members to own our responsibility to appoint people to the board that closely represent you, which is what I intend to do July of 2024.
There's a smoking gun that's about to get said here.
Now we've got major resistance to even working anything out. That's why I support reducing the board, specifically for the library, as you said, because of that.
Now the council's being accused of, okay, you're changing the board composition because somehow you're trying to get a majority on that board to do what you want to do. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-2.
I don't know. I don't know about you. I think that went by way too fast. Could you absorb anything from it? It zoomed on by. We probably need to talk about that history in a little bit more depth. So Lacey, I think you were saying that you can handle that?
Sure. So like I said, we have been on this issue since the summer of 2023. We did a little digging and it really surfaced in 2022 in Councilmember Tom Audette's newsletters. That's when he started to make mention about the impact of the ALA, which is the American Library Association, and their national agenda and the push about gender identity, which he believes is damaging to kids and their families in our community. And he included a link to let him know of issues within the library and how to contact the library if his constituents have concerns. So he kind of started to come up with some ideas in his newsletter about this way back in 2022. 2023 is when he brought these ideas to county council meetings, and that's when the awareness came. I'm not even sure how it came to me, because I will be honest, I didn't even know we had a library board until these comments started to happen at council meetings and what the function of that was and how they govern. So it was very educational for me. So he shared a few books, and those have been highlighted on previous episodes. But they had a lot of people from the Morningstar area, from YCGOP. I would say probably a lot of grandmas and grandpas, not a lot of parent age or teens and kids who are actually utilizing the library, the children, young adult sections on the regular. So they would come in and talk about porn in the libraries and the gender identity movement, whatever that is. They seem to think there is some plan by the ALA and librarians to indoctrinate children in some way, to make them gay or trans or whatever fear stoking has been happening. They've probably read a lot of headlines or got a lot of talking points from their emails from YCGOP, Moms for Liberty, and other local groups who kind of organized and rallied these speakers. So they came, the quote unquote other side, I guess, which is just community members from various walks of life, lots of different experiences, some parents, some not, some public education background, a lot from the homeschool community as well. Like, these are just people that utilize the library, that care about our libraries. They may or may not have children that identify as LGBTQ+, but they know that it is important to have books that represent everyone. So both sides would come out and speak. Became a little bit of a hot button thing at council meetings that summer. It's what happened after that was really concerning, because the library board then decided, no, we will not move the books from the children and young adult sections that make mention of LGBTQ+. We're going to keep them in those areas that our professional librarians designate as appropriate. They are children's books, they are young adult books, that is where they will be housed. And the statement they made at the time was very appropriate, very respectful to all sides of the issue, based on research and evidence and best practice, all the good stuff. But because the council didn't get what they want, council meaning Tamadet and the people who very generously donate to our current council majority's campaigns, the YCGOP. So ultimately, this all kind of comes back to the wishes of the YCGOP, which they make known. They stream their meetings, monthly meetings, or at least they used to. It's really boring and horrible to watch, so I don't. But in the past, they would make mention about the library issues, county council's involvement and board appointees at these meetings. So they're kind of like the puppet strings, because they do fund campaigns, they do give direction to council members and what they should and shouldn't do in many issues. But as it relates to this, they wanted the library board to be reshaped. They wanted it to be filled with members who would do what they want, which again is to relocate books that make mention of LGBTQ plus characters from the children, young adult sections, and then move them over to the adult sections. And so because that board said no, they decided to reduce it. Had 10 members, they got rid of all 3 at-large seats. They had some redistricting that was done a year prior. They said, hey, you guys no longer live where you were appointed in your district, not because you moved, not because you made a choice, but because we redistricted a year ago. So for this board and this board only, we're going to bounce you, we're going to replace you. Now, the remaining members did their best. They really tried. One of them filled out her term and she was done. 2 others ended up resigning because of, bullying that was just evident because it was done during full board meetings where the public was present. And they resigned. They were just community members that were there to serve the community, that were supporters of the library, that had backgrounds that, really kind of led them to that calling. But they were replaced by these handpicked members of the council. And the reason why it's very concerning about who these handpicked members are is because they literally are YCGOP leadership or spouses of leadership. And that's a big concern for us. We want to make sure our boards are balanced. We want to make sure that people are on boards that are there to serve the board, not to serve a political agenda. So what they did is they stacked the board with YCGOP leadership and spouses of leadership. And so that's what they did, which kind of brings us to where we are today, where they now have board majority. We do have one friendly board member, Terry Plum, friendly in the fact that he wasn't hand-selected for any which way. He was appointed by Bumparati, who is the lone Democrat on the council. I don't know what other applications came in for that. We FOIA'd them. We can go and review. But I would guess that Plum's is going to be the best of the best because he is a former board member of Friends of the Library, which is a nonprofit. They have them across the country, across all counties in South Carolina. These are just groups of people that really have a heart for libraries, and they support libraries financially in all the which ways that they can. And so he was already on that board. He demonstrated his service heart for the community in terms of our local library. So that was an easy pick. The rest of them, obviously, we know what the puppet strings told them to do, but you can't even justify it. When we FOIA'd those applications and we saw the amazing applicants that had a community heart, that understood the function of a library, that know how libraries serve communities, that are there to serve everyone and not political allies or specific agendas. And then we see who they picked. And it's really evident when you do a side-by-side of those applications. More so evident when you look at the very well documented alignments of the leadership and spouses of our current board. So we now have a board majority that is YCGOP leadership or spouses. And that is a problem because they are not there because they love and support libraries, librarians, or our community at whole. They are there to, as we've seen in emails that we FOIA'd, to do the job they were hired to do, which is to create a policy to relocate the books that this loud and persistent minority they disagree with. And because they disagree with it, they should not be accessible to the general public easy, which they say isn't banning, but it's essentially banning because you're limiting easy access to those books, and it's a problem.
I want to ask about the makeup of the board before all this happened. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be a little snarky here. How did a whole bunch of lefty pinko people get on a county library board in a red county like your county?
So I think the easy answer to that is they weren't lefty pinko people. I have to learn these terms. But
oh, come on.
They were just people, right? They were just people. They were painted to be leftist liberals, people obsessed with pushing an identity on a youth, but they were truly just random members of the community that they knew a board existed. Like I said, I didn't know the library board existed until I knew. Like, the more you know. There are lots of boards out there that are unfortunately being politicized when they shouldn't be. So yeah, they were just there with service hearts. Some of them had an education background. Some of them had experience in higher education. Some of them had experience within libraries, or just were community members that appreciated and supported the function of a library. So these were just kind of like people. They weren't leaders of like YCDP. They were not within any kind of political leadership. They were not spouses of anyone in political leadership, to my knowledge. There's no association that you could say that they were there to push an agenda. They were just there to serve, and they did, and they served well. I always joke, like, can we make our library board meetings boring again? Like, that would be great, because they used to do this. Nobody from the public came. Again, nobody knew that they existed. They just did their business. They supported, and they served their community in that way. And unfortunately, a lot of their times were cut short. And so, like I said, some of them were bullied off the board, but it wasn't because they were there with an agenda. It was because they served the community. And again, Tom Audette and the other people on the council majority and the YCGOP back people, they just were not happy with the decision they made. And because they weren't happy, they decided to flip the board, right? Intentionally reduce, reshape, and it's corrupt, it's political stacking so that they can do their evil bidding.
Yeah, these folks were appointed back before the culture wars hit the library.
Bingo.
So they were appointed for their expertise and interest in library, although they did put in a lot of books that were oriented toward the LGBTQ community.
I think if you look at the percentage of books that are and are not, this is not like out of whack, right? So I would say any introduction of books that have happened over the years are definitely representative of, our librarians. I can't speak to what they do. I am not a professional librarian. I'm just a supporter of. But what they do is they have ways that they're able to review books. They kind of see what the needs are in the community. They see the reviews of books that are coming out. And, if and when more books are being published that do highlight inclusivity, that are going to be there to help represent these portions of our population that do exist, our children, our youth, and our adults in our community that do identify as LGBTQ+. Obviously we have more representation now, both in our people and both in our media, right? Our books, our TV shows, our movie. And it's not because there's a push, it's because there is a cultural shift in, these people exist and they deserve to have representation in the media they consume as well. It is as simple as that. We deserve to see people that have similar walks of life and experiences as we do, but also that benefit is mirrors and windows, right? We also want to learn about people who are different from us. And so it's really cool that anyone that goes to the library can then pick up a book and learn not just about, this is just like me, I want to read more of this and my viewpoints. We can also read and learn about other people's experiences and viewpoints too.
Yeah. So over the past couple of years, the media in general has paid more attention to the diversity of our population, and that got reflected in the library, which is why they picked these books and why I'm calling them the lefty liberal pinko people. Mm-hmm. This is a microscopic portion of their job. They weren't there to say, let's promote the gay agenda. They were there to run a library. Mm-hmm. And putting in books that recognized the diversity of our population was part of that, teeny little part of that compared to everything else that they do.
I cannot say I know all the ins and outs of what librarians do. I have librarians in my life that I love and support, and they could probably, name this much about what I do, and I can name this much about what they do. But I do know that they are the professionals, and just because I don't know the ins and outs of your job, I'm not about to tell you what to do. But that's that professional respect that I do think is lacking when it comes to how we treat our professional librarians, that they did go to school for this for a very long time. They had their practicums and internships. They learned along the way, and they know what they're doing. And I trust them. When they say a book is appropriate for children and teens, I feel comfortable with my children in those sections looking at books with me. But I also exercise parental responsibility, and I'm going to view what my children are checking out, because it is important to me that I have that awareness. But also, if there's things in that book that might cause questions or concerns, or like, ooh, is this different from my values or not? That's going to lead to some really good discussion that we can have. And so I use that as a learning experience, where others might use that as someone's out to get me and my family because there's something I don't believe in. But a good library has books that's going to offend everybody. I mean, that's just, we're all different and unique, and that's just how that goes.
There are books in the library that espouse conservative values as well, I'm sure. We just don't, we don't pay much attention to them. Okay, so...
But they deserve to be there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm happy for those books to be there. They have an audience. It might not be a book I would choose for myself or my children, but I am not going to say that book should not be in the library. So I trust the librarians.
Yeah, we didn't rise up with a cry to take these books out of the library.
Right.
So 2 years ago, the county council started to replace people on the library board, and it took a while. People had to either finish their terms, or as you were saying, that some people ran because they were just being bullied on the library board. So maybe it happened a little faster than it normally would have. And now, what have we ended up with? What have we got? And I can help out with a look at the library board website and see a list of the board members, and maybe you can sort of give us a rundown of who's who.
Yeah. So what we see, obviously, we know we have a community member on there that is there just to simply support our libraries and has a history of doing so, which is District 4, Terry Plum. I see Tim Steele. He's our board chair. He is also in leadership with the YCGOP, high up in that leadership. Nancy Nicholson, she's both in YCGOP and the Reaganites, which is another far-right kind of MAGA-loving type of group. We have Herring, who is also with the Reaganites. We've got Getter with the Reaganites. Millam, her husband, is in leadership with like a cluster lead for YCGOP. So, this board majority is definitely there to fulfill an agenda. It's been stated in emails that have been written. Unfortunately, they haven't kept this hidden. This isn't like a secret agenda. They've kind of very boldly acted in the ways they've acted because they have included some of this information in their emails, which we FOIA and can read. They have boldly stated as such at their YCGOP meetings, which are streamed to the public on their YouTube page. So it's not that they're hiding any of this. The council will occasionally say, we're not influencing the board. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. But like, every action that you've taken so far has shown that you are. So it's just interesting to me that they can just be so bold about it, continue to be bold about it. And like, that's just what's happening. And there's not really, aside from the resistance, the awareness and actions that we have brought about to, make sure the community is becoming aware of what's going on. And it's definitely gotten some media attention, both local and national, which is great. But they're continuing, like this train is pulled out the station and is heading toward the destination, which is unfortunately censorship.
And these board positions, they are all first term. So it's a 4-year term and you can get 2 terms. So this could certainly impact our county. At a minimum, there's 3 board positions that expire in 2027 and then several in 2028. But if everyone gets a second term, and this will go on and impact our county for 7-8 more years.
So what kind of, I was going to ask, what kind of impact in terms of making policy changes has there been? But before you answer that question, there's a little bit of video that's been pulled out of, I think, either a board meeting or a committee meeting that I want to show.
The system recognizes parents, legal guardians have a fundamental right involved in all aspects of their minor children's especially with matters of life-changing and gender identification. Therefore, materials targeting audiences aged 13 to 17 with characters that have transitioned or in the process of transitioning from a gender that corresponds to their biological sex to a different gender will be located in the adult section. This materials with illustrations, themes, and storylines that celebrate, portray, or affirm gender transitioning, whether changes in social names or pronouns or physical. So that's my rewrite of the section there for young adults / teen.
There's some things that we can unpack from that. First of all, who was that speaking?
That's Dennis Getter. He is the chair for the policy committee. He's also a big time donator to several of our council members when it comes to their campaigns.
Okay, and since it's only 4 people there, it's a committee meeting.
Yeah, there's actually 3 committee members and then a representative from the library who's taking notes.
Yep. Can we tell who the other people are?
Yep, that's Susan Pining to the right of Dennis Getter, and across from her is Nancy Nicholson.
Okay, and there's somebody kind of hiding in the back who can't see in the far side.
That's
it's Martin from the library.
Yeah, he's our assistant director.
Okay, so it's all the right wing folks. And
yeah, and a neutral library party.
Okay, and this was clearly open to the public because somebody was there recording it.
Yeah, they do allow those to be to the public, but I'm going to let Stephanie tell you they've gotten pretty clever, and she can explain how clever they've gotten to make these meetings less transparent.
That was the first workshop meeting for the policy subcommittee, which is made up of 3 members of the library board and then a library staff member, usually the library director or the assistant library director, that is not ever asked for their discussion or opinion on anything. They are simply there to take notes or be told what to do, to retype up or things. That was the only meeting where Dennis actually spoke the words out loud of what their plan is, where he said about copying and pasting Greenville Public Library's new policy on transgender and gender identity books that Greenville Public Library passed. I believe it was last year, much to the dismay of their public. And they are now being sued by the South Carolina ACLU with some families, Greenville families, whose teens were impacted by the policy. Since then, the York County Policy Subcommittee workshop meetings have been, 2 of them were 15 minutes long with no verbal discussion. Just some handouts and people silently reading. And then the last one was last week. That one was 30 minutes. Again, they handed out a 27-page handout to the members where they all basically silently read. They had a few questions here and there that they asked the librarians on, like local author collections, how big that was, or they're clearly doing some kind of reconsideration and removal policy update as well. But they won't verbalize any of it because we were able to show that first meeting, and members of the public were not happy. And
so that's how they kind of hide in plain sight what they're doing. Is they're sitting there in front of you, they're not talking, they're just reading. It's almost like they could on a texting date.
Right. There's no discussion, and the same for even when I FOIA the emails. There's no discussion between board members. So someone will say something and there's no like continuing email exchange about anything. So it is a very odd way to work, I think. And they are very sly about everything they do. They don't, they do post their meetings in advance on the library website. But you have to check every day to make sure they are not trying to get something past you. So we've been very successful in making sure that all meetings are attended by members of Support YCL so that we can video it, we can witness what they are trying to do and get the word out.
That's an interesting point. York County Council meetings are all live streamed. Many of the municipal government bodies, towns, and their city councils live stream their meetings. The library definitely does not. They let you record the video, but they don't record it themselves, and they certainly don't live stream it. So that's interesting.
They do an audio recording, but that only started in October after they had a big fallout about their book moratorium, where it was not recorded, and there were only 2 or 3 of us present at that meeting. And when we reported what came out of that meeting and the public got upset and the publicity started, they tried to say, oh, well, we never said those things. So that was a good thing that they did start to audio record at that point.
At this kind of a meeting, you can be present, but you are not allowed to talk. They don't have public comment.
Correct. They discourage public comment always. A workshop is not allowed to have public comment. At their last board meeting on July 10th or 12th, I can't remember. I think it was on the 10th. The agenda said there would not be a public comment. And there was a meeting immediately preceding the full library board meeting. And then so some of us were there for the first meeting. Suddenly a sign-up sheet came out of nowhere and people were allowed to comment if you were one of the first to sign up. So that was, Terry Plum has mentioned that in that particular meeting, that the board really does not want to hear anything from the public.
Yeah.
And at that meeting previous to that, the full board meeting previous to that, I want to say it was June.
Mm-hmm.
That was an unfortunate meeting as well, because again, trying to stifle true public comment, they had 6 people show up early, like real early, to sign up for all 6 spots. And those people were Moms for Liberty leadership and or YCGOP leadership, which that's like a circle if you're doing a Venn diagram. So basically they were told, and so they didn't really have a lot to say. They had a lot of compliments to give the board. Thank you for protecting the children. It's just there to be complimentary. And I guess the agenda item they were speaking to were like basically the official roles of those within the board. Like if you're going to serve as
the elections,
or chairman. Yeah. So they were like, oh, keep it the same. You guys are doing great. So technically you were supposed to have 3 for and 3 against an item. They did not. All they did was talk about how much they loved the board. And so that was actually pointed out halfway through by Carol Herring, which is one of the YCGOP leadership people that is on the board. And she said, actually, if we look at our bylaws, it's supposed to be 3 for and 3 against. And it looks like, the rest are for, and board member Chairman Tim Steele said, oh, let it go. So like bylaws be damned. They don't really care about following bylaws. Obviously, it was unethical. They encouraged them to come. One of them actually approached our group when they were in like recess or whatever for executive session And it was like a neighbor speaking to one of our people. They were neighbors with each other. And she literally said to us, "Oh, well, I was told by my friend on the board to come early to speak. Weren't you told to come early to speak?" We're like, "No, we don't get directives about that. We come to speak when there's something important to us, and we've been attending meetings for a while now. No one's telling us to come and speak," but they were clearly given a directive. And it's just unfortunate that that kind of thing is happening intentionally. Again, the board's doing, the YCGOP leadership's doing, to stifle the community. They don't want to hear dissenting opinions. Okay, for a party that loves freedom, they really don't want you to have freedom of speech. They don't like to follow their own bylaws. So it's been an utter disappointment after disappointment with this board.
Yeah, it's freedom of speech to say whatever that they like.
Don't forget, if they canceled their meeting in May, so nobody could speak, and then in April, that was an interesting meeting too, because we had 6 people signed up to speak, and we all said no. And so after the 3 speakers, they cut us off, and they didn't let the other 3 people speak. So it was okay for their allies, but not okay for us. So yeah, they definitely don't follow their own rules.
And we had for and against for that meeting. So we truly were following the bylaws, but you could literally see like steam coming out of Tim Steele's ear at that meeting. Like he was just so upset by the dissenting opinions, because we were talking about their plans to relocate books before this policy committee actually verbalized them. We said, we've seen the emails. We know that this is the intention. Here's a reminder, that will result in a lawsuit. Like that is going to open us big time to lawsuits. ACLU-USC has addressed that with you guys. Back in May 2023, a representative from the ACLU-USC came and spoke to our county council. They had a 10-minute time slot. They signed up ahead of time, took that 10 minutes to explain how relocating the books is censorship, how it is an attack on intellectual freedom against our First and 14th Amendment rights, and it will likely result in lawsuits for York County. So it was very well laid out. It was very well explained. And so I just reminded them about that and reminded them about a current lawsuit, which we'll speak to in a moment, that is happening in Greenville County, which is the policy that Dennis Getter wants to cut and paste. And that is at the core of their lawsuit. So by me stating that this is happening and will likely result in a lawsuit, he then makes a statement after he says no one else can speak, that we cannot threaten the board. There were no threats made. There was an explanation about their plans and how those plans would likely result in lawsuits. Facts are not threats. It is just facts. But the board doesn't seem to like facts. Anti-fact.
So I got 2 little pieces of video to play that are germane to what we're talking about. But before we lose a big thread here, the video we looked at a moment ago where they're talking about where Dennis was saying, here's the policy that I've cut and pasted from Greenville. That's the move the LGBTQ books from the children's section to the adult section that started this whole thing. It is 2025,
and they're targeting trans people with this one.
Yeah, it's 2025, and we're still working on that issue.
They were a little slow to do what they wanted to do. They kind of took their time. They moseyed about, but I don't know. They just decided let's do it. I'm not really sure what the rationale was with their timeline, but they've had board majority for a little bit. I think they were just kind of figuring out like how to do. They don't seem to be very well versed in like being on a board, bylaws, Robert's rules. Like there's a way to do things and a way not to do things. And so I think maybe they were finding their footing before they really, went for the kill.
Yep. So that hasn't been passed yet. I understand it's coming up next month in August. And that's when that one big issue may finally see the resolution that we don't want, but that they've been pushing for 3 years now. Let me take a look at a little bit of this public comment stuff from one of the other committee meetings.
Why did we decide that there will be no public comment in this meeting?
That is our discretion to do that, and we have a lot on the agenda. And we can do that at other times if we like.
You say our, who decided it?
I worked with the director to put the agenda together. That's the chairman's responsibility.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so the question was asked, why don't we want public comment? And you may notice that the answer was conspicuously missing. Nobody said why. At this last board meeting, there was a discussion and an agenda item about public comment, and they wanted to cut it down from 6 to 4. And Terry objected to that, and they had a vote, and on the vote, it ended up going back to 6 people to make comments. I think that the part about 6 for and 6 against got left out. I'm not sure. But it was back to 6. Yeah. So even the Republican members of the board said, it's a little too obvious, as is being pointed out, that we're cutting back on public comment if we go from 6 to 4. Terry wanted 30 minutes worth in that meeting.
Right.
But they voted.
I think he was trying to go big to get back to where we were.
Yeah. So they voted.
I'm thinking strategy, right?
Yeah. Voted back for 6 people, each with 2 minutes. So a total of 12. As that was wrapping up, and there were several points in that meeting as I watched the video from it. There are several points where people on either side of an issue would applaud what was said. But here's an interesting thing that happened at this meeting on that issue after it was decided.
This is restrictive. It's going back. It's pretty clear the motivation is that we don't really want to hear what people have to say. We're more concerned about our feelings than we are really learning about what the public has to say. So I'm against this amendment.
Okay. Listen, you all, we're going to have an orderly meeting. This is your one warning that if it's disruptive, this fine officer will be escorting a disruptive person out of the building. Thank you. Okay, do we have any more discussion?
Yes, that was unnecessary.
Okay, that gentleman right there. Thank you.
Oh yeah, public support is very disruptive.
More of that disruptive applause going on there.
Make library board meetings boring again. Like nobody even attended board meetings before. The only reason people are there is because they are doing activity that they know is not appropriate and that will bring harm to your county. And so it's a mess.
Yeah.
All right. So in August, that issue will come up. No expectation that it's not going to pass, I guess.
They have the votes.
It has the votes. So one thing that could potentially be in our favor, and we just don't know yet, our little small Hail Mary hope, is that the county attorney is reviewing the policy. They allegedly submitted the policy to him on Friday, or at least that was the plan as of their last meeting. And the county attorney is going to be reviewing the policy and advising the board. So given the current lawsuit, ACLU, SC, and ACLU is supporting patrons in Greenville County to sue the board. I shouldn't say sue the board. Not sue the board, sue Greenville County for allowing this policy to take place. It is a discriminatory policy. It goes against their First and 14th Amendments. And again, this is the cut and paste policy that Dennis Getter, the chair for the policy committee of York County Library Board of Trustees, would like to implement here in York County. And so our hope is that when our county attorney reviews it, that he can advise the board that it is indeed discriminatory. It will indeed bring the risk of lawsuits to York County and advise against it. Now, at which case, I guess the board can do what they will with that information. I don't know if that advisement will be made public, if that's something that we can FOIA. We'll have to figure that out along the way. We've been learning a lot about county inner workings. We're learning as we go and growing as we go, and it's been really beautiful in that way, but it's also a challenge. So hopefully we'll learn what that information is, and we'll see what they do, but they do have board majority. They can do their will, which is the will of the council based on the actions we've seen, which is the will of the YCGOP, which is what's been stated at their very own meetings and streamed publicly.
We don't have a result of the lawsuit yet. If the lawsuit had been concluded and ACLU had prevailed, it would be pretty clear that if York County tried to do the same thing, they would probably get sued as well, or maybe there'd be precedent that just couldn't do it. But that lawsuit is still pending, and who knows when it's going to be. Are even hearings going on? Is there anything happening
There
with
hasn't
that?
been a lot of movement that we've heard of, unfortunately, but it is in existence, which is great that Greenville County is having that support. But just to share this important bit of information, it is August 14th at noon at the Rock Hill Library. That's our main branch, August 14th at noon at the Rock Hill Library. If you're thinking noon, oh, that's hard. I work, I have other stuff going on. Maybe I have kids to take care of. That's intentional. Our library board meetings used to be at 6 p.m. They are now held at noon, which is another copy and paste of Greenville County. We can only assume, because this is how our current board majority operates, is that they made the switch from 6 to noon in hopes that that would deter public participation, because a lot of what they've done so far has been to deter public participation in meetings. It's actually worked against them. It seems to be that we have more community members able to make it during the day, so thanks for that. But yep, it's going to be August 14th. And so, we would definitely encourage a presence. The unfortunate part about their recent change to public comments, the 3 and 4, 3 and against, yes, that was confusing for a bit, right? Like sometimes it was hard to figure out, am I speaking for or against an item? Or did we have 3 for, 3 against? Because like clearly the board members were not keeping count and were just either shutting it down or letting everybody talk for an item. The reason why that was there was to keep the speakers balanced. So let's say at this next meeting, you've got a lot of passionate people on both sides, dare I say, usually more on our side, but we'll see how that flows in August. Nothing's going to stop them from letting their buddies come in early to sign the sheet. So they could take all 6 spots again. I would venture a guess that they're probably going to do something like that, because we can only guess their future actions based on their pattern of behavior. So August 14th, be there to witness this decision.
So I noticed that you have received a lot of information based on filing FOIA or Freedom of Information Act requests. And I also noticed that at this meeting there was a discussion, I don't know if this is a brand new discussion or it's been around a while, about charging more money or charging money for answering FOIA requests.
I move that the York County Library Board adopt the FOIA fees policy that York County already has in place.
What can you make of that? And I also noticed that they couldn't give you an estimate. People keep asking, well, how much money did it cost to file one of these things? And it's like, we can't tell.
So we have to shut down all your emails.
Right.
And then the 2 IT workers who work on this have other things to do, so I can't say a lump sum of time.
They have implemented that. I started being the lead person from our group to submit Freedom of Information Act requests. So I did, the first one I submitted was after the April library board meeting. And so I requested everything from January 1st to April 10th when that meeting was. And then of course, due to Freedom of Information Act, they have 30 days to get you the information after they acknowledge your request. So you're not getting it in a very quick manner by any means. The library, only has a few people that can answer reply or respond to a Freedom of Information Act request. And obviously they have other job functions that they are doing as well, which totally understand. So they have always been fabulous about getting what I have requested. After that big 4-month one, I started requesting every 30 days. And so the library board, because I've seen the emails, are notified. Stephanie Griffith has requested through FOIA request all of your emails for this time period. I'm sure that they don't love that whatsoever. Like I said, they do not use email very much, if at all. So it's not like I'm seeing any smoking guns in there. I think they do a lot of things verbally as a way to deter or slow people down. Is the library did not charge for to do a FOIA request. The county council does charge for a FOIA request, because I do also do FOIA requests for all county council members, emails regarding the library, and I am charged for that. And the going rate is $42.85 per hour. And my last FOIA took 3 hours worth of work, they said. Again, that was for January through April. I didn't actually get the materials in hand until like July. No one on the library board seemed to have a copy of the Freedom of Information Act at the last library board meeting, or know how much it should reasonably cost. I know I heard someone say something like it should cost whatever the lowest paid person that has to, put the work together. Which, if $42.85 is the lowest cost person, that's amazing. But that is the going rate. I'm assuming that the library will charge the same rate as the county does. I have not seen anything as yet about that, but it will not deter me.
I was just going to say, is it going to end up keeping you from making those requests? No,
because I have found emails from the public, supportive library letters, occasional emails within the library board members, or even county council that, you see something and you're like, oh, okay, well, now I understand what they're doing. So yes, I will continue to FOIA the library each month and county council. It's the only way to try and keep shining the light on what is going on. So that is one of the ways.
Do you guys do any fundraising to help pay for that, or is this all out of your pocket?
This is a labor of love, and my pockets are not deep.
No.
Sometimes we have generous community members that will say, hey, we love what you're doing. When I say sometimes, that happened once. So if anyone wanted to, they could, but we are not an official nonprofit. So it's not, it's really like, hey, I want to pay for your FOIAs. And we will love to allow someone to do that because
absolutely
it is costly. But we don't raise funds or things like that because we are just very cautious of, we are a Facebook group and we are just grassroots organizing people.
Mm-hmm.
But we are not at this time like a nonprofit or anything like that. So yeah, we'll let you help out there if you want to help out, because there are definitely ways to help. But we don't have a Venmo or anything like that. So
it's just contact one of you guys and say, hey, I can give you some money to help.
Yeah,
do this.
We appreciate the support. I think we talked a lot and for a long time. Thank you for those that are sticking with it. But there's so much we didn't even mention. So this is like, there's a lot of layers to this onion. And I would be remiss to say, like, protecting intellectual freedom is not the only goal, although this is the goal we are focusing on right now of Support York County Libraries. So I would love for Laura Cato to get to share a little bit about what the group is really all about and how we would like to see a shift from, this distracting stuff to what we really need to do to support our libraries.
Yeah, and I was just about to say, we have caught ourselves up to what started 3 years ago. So what's next? So Laura, I guess you're on the spot.
Okay, sure. Well, our main goal is that we need more libraries to serve our county, whether that means a bigger library or additional locations. And we need libraries that have modern amenities. So I'm a library nerd. Over the last year, when I travel with my kids, we go to a library. So I've been to the library in downtown Columbia. That thing is over 100,000 square feet. It's amazing. I have been to the main library in Lexington County, just outside of Columbia, and I have been to the main library in Charleston. Again, that library is amazing. So Charleston has 18 libraries in their whole county. Even Lexington, which is the closest county to us size-wise, they have 10 libraries. We have 5. That's it. We desperately need larger libraries to serve our growing population. We are now officially over the 300,000 mark. We're number 7 in population for the whole state. And I think we're number 2 or number 3 fiscally in the whole state. So we have the money, we have the population, We need to catch up, and we need to build bigger, better libraries. Some of the modern things that we have seen at other libraries in the state and all throughout the country, makers labs, sewing labs, private study spaces. My kids are neurodivergent, so as much as I love the library, tutoring and studying at a library are almost impossible because there's so much going on they can't focus. A private space for them to study is essential. There are so many really cool features, a place to record videos, a studio. Our homeschool population is growing, and especially since 2020. So like Stephanie said earlier, this is a homeschooler's library. And so they need those features. It's not something that an individual can afford to have in their home. And it's something that we need to provide our students to continue to grow and to build our county. So we really want to see additional spaces. If we could have another 5 libraries based on our population, because there is a formula. I believe it's for every 1 people in the county, you should have 1.5 square footage of library space. So we are desperately underserved, and we really need bigger and better libraries.
So we have noted extensively here in this program that the current library board is mostly political appointments. Do they have any interest in doing this sort of thing?
I will give some credit. Dennis Getter surprised us and actually talked about additional library space, especially over in Fort Mill. That's where he does live. So he actually did address that and had some short-term solutions that are viable solutions. If we can get all of the people in the towns and the counties to work together and agree, we have a really great short-term solution. Utilizing all the space in the Baxter location, the first floor and the second floor, would be an immediate relief to some of this needs that we have. And then they also talked about building a new library in Fort Mill and then possibly over in the Lake Wiley area. That's their ideas, their speculations. We really would like to see them do a formal assessment, hire an outside company to come in and really look at, where's the population, where's it growing, look at the neighborhoods that have been approved in the future, the traffic patterns, everything. Where would new libraries best serve us? And do our existing libraries, are they in the best location? And what services does everybody want? An informal survey done by the library staff is great, but we want to reach as many people as we possibly can, because sadly, not everybody goes to the library. And maybe some of these awesome new features would bring people in. And then they would realize how awesome our libraries can be. But we really need that formal needs assessment. Charlotte, right next door to us, I know they don't like to hear about Charlotte, but they're currently building a brand new library downtown. And there's a second branch that they're going to be building. I believe it's on the east side. I've had a chance to talk with them. They have that formal plan. They have hired those consultants. They have a whole division within their library system that looks at where to put libraries. They, of course, are a metro area, but they have the goal of having a library within 15 minutes of every single citizen in the city. So they have a very clear strategic plan. We don't. And so that is something that the library is supposed to be working on. We just want to make sure that they include that formal guidance from a company that does that and does it all around the country and knows, the most important information about libraries, because there's a lot of money. So we want to make sure we spend it wisely. We also have to convince a bunch of people who generally do not want to raise taxes or pay an additional tax. And we have to convince them why this is necessary and why we need it.
And I think it's important to note too that this was actually included in the library budget, and then it was slashed.
Yeah,
so this was something that the board previously had supported. Again, that board has changed a lot. And so before they had majority, it was supported by the board and it was put in their budget and it was approved, but it was something with the mills and whatever. They had to reduce their budget because it was slashed by the county. And so because of that, they ended up taking that out. And I think it was like defibrillators or something important, but not this. And so it was removed from the budget and it has not been put back in the budget. And we have definitely advocated for the inclusion of a formal community needs assessment. Because when you're going to convince not only the county council, but the taxpayers who may have to vote on a bond referendum to support such growth, expansion and modernization, right? So you need dynamic data. You need actual consultants who this is what they do day to day. The Strategic Planning Committee, which Carol Herring is in charge of, they have talked about kind of doing their own informal assessments. Like she mentioned, like, you know, going to Harris Teeter and asking people questions. Like, it's not really a thorough plan. It's not really the path that most counties would follow to gather data. They talked about hosting town halls and, you know, doing some things. But when you see how this board does what they do, I can only imagine them hosting a town hall. Like, who would get notified about said town hall? I bet the Moms for Liberty and York County GOP crew would. But how would it be shared with the masses? And how would they be recruiting people to attend, support, complete surveys, this, that, and the other? I would much prefer an unbiased entity come in, gather this information, so we have dynamic data to really justify the cost associated with expansion and modernization of our libraries. And like Laura said, we are woefully behind counties of similar populations, socioeconomic patterns, all the things. So it's a sad state of affairs for the libraries in a lot of different ways. But when the community comes together and when the community works together, you know, these whispers that we've been, you know, that we grow into the roar, right? Like Dennis Getter has referred to us as the roar. And you know what? We can own that. We started off with whispers. This stuff's happening, people. Did you know? Did you know? But when everybody gets together, it does become a roar. And so that's really what needs to happen in our community is we need to come together and we need to make sure that our libraries are supported, not only stopping censorship, but also ensuring that they're properly funded so we can keep up with the growth that we've had here in York County.
When we get away, if we can get away from the culture wars part of what's been going on, do the libraries have broad-based support, nonpartisan, non-political support?
Well, I believe the estimate was about 60% of the county has a library card. So there's at least that. So we know at least more than 50% of the population is using the library. I know there are some people that say, you know, libraries are dead, people aren't using them. It's one of the only places that you can go to have a free program. And it's, you know, besides your taxpayer dollars that you're already paying. But for young families, that's vital because we can't all afford to pay for a program every single day, you know, to take our children somewhere to be engaged and to learn. And, you know, libraries are amazing resources for adults as well. People who are looking for jobs can actually get help from the professional librarians. There's classes for how to use computers. There's, you know, all sorts of classes just to continue adult learning. I've seen gardening. I've seen, you know, fun things like Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, there's all sorts of. They just had a program this last weekend about Hemingway and how he really started the movement of big game fishing. My husband, who doesn't read very much, actually wanted to go to that. You know, to have programs to bring everybody in, people who don't normally go to the library, that's really important because then they might get their hook in and realize, hey, you know, there's lots of other cool things that the library can provide for the community. And, you know, I think once they hear that, and see some of these other features. Our libraries are so far behind. I've seen people say, I took a step in, I looked around, and I walked back out. They didn't even want to look around. Right. Some people need the fancy things. Some people need the cool gadgets. Some people need, you know, the, I don't know, special table or whatever, but they're not even going to stay. They're not even going to look at the books. And some of them pay money to use the Charlotte library system rather than staying here. So we're losing some of our county people to other libraries.
So you were talking about some of the programs, and I was going to ask about programs, and I guess stepping back into the culture wars a little bit, the York County libraries have had safe space programs for at-risk kids. Have the current board said anything or done anything to change that? Do they still exist?
They used to have designated rainbow cafes, rainbow spaces, places that were for LGBTQ plus youth and allies, open to anyone, supportive and inclusive, right? And it was great. They would do crafts, they would do art activities. It was just good fun that they could enjoy in a space where they knew they weren't going to be teased or made fun of because of who they are and how they identify. So unfortunately, I think it was it the Clover Branch? There was a protest. And this was probably about a year and a half ago now. This was a ways back. There was
I want to say last April, maybe?
Maybe. And it was a neighboring church that kind of organized, unfortunately. And it was scary. It was scary for the kids walking in to have people saying things to them, holding signs. And it was not appropriate. It was unacceptable. It was gross. But it happened, and put the library in a tough spot because they want to make sure that their patrons feel comfortable and safe, and they also want to protect the identities of these youth who are just attending a library program. They weren't there for a political war. They were not there for an agenda of any kind. They wanted to participate in their program with their friends, and that was what they were met with. So no, they do not have programs that are called Rainbow Space, Rainbow Cafe. If you have been going to the library for a long time and know that teen spaces are safe spaces for that, they might call it like Teen Cafe. Honestly, I don't even know if they call it that anymore. I'm not sure if there really is a program. It kind of went to the wayside. I would say that was more, it wasn't a board decision that led to that. It was a chilling effect of our current board, their political motivations, and the church that organized that protest. So there was no official decision made, but unfortunately our youth do not have access to the programming that they did that was inclusive in that way.
I'm going to say somebody must have made the decision not to do that, but it was below the board of directors level.
There wasn't any public discussion. We haven't seen any evidence of it in FOIA that the board was involved with that. We have
that was Julie, the director, decided on that as a way to keep the youth safe. Was how it was
in the emails.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, not necessarily board involvement, but a decision made in light of safety. I think a lot of the times our library leadership is between a rock and a hard place. You want to support intellectual freedom. You want to support the youth that attend your programming in your library. But at the same time, who's in charge of the employment of our director and our leadership, our board? So it's hard because you want to keep your job and your staff's job safe. And you want this to be a place that you can go to for work every day and do the job that you love to do. But unfortunately, they're in a tough spot, and they're all doing the best they can with what they got. And that is why we are the ones that can go to meetings and speak out and support when they cannot.
Okay. Laura, you were talking about hopes for expanding the library system. And we mentioned that when you've got Republicans, people who have business experience, maybe they're in a good place to help make this happen if they're motivated to make it happen. And if we see community support, nonpartisan community support behind it, then I guess it could happen. So, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Is there anything else going on or anything else you guys see in the immediate future to talk about, or any things that the public needs to do to help you out?
I think that August meeting is going to be important. That August 14th meeting, noon at the Rock Hill Main branch. That is where, as far as we know at this day and time, the next meeting will be held. They have been known to last minute change a day, time, location of a meeting. Again, we would assume the intention to try not to have a lot of public participation, but you can always check the York County Library Board of Trustees website for the most up-to-date date. If you follow our public page, if you are part of our group on Facebook, we also have the website that we mentioned before. I'm sure Gary will share. So it is lots of ways to keep in touch and stay on top of this info. But August 14th, that's the day that we are going to find out if they're going to do what they were hired to do, as Nancy said.
And what time, if they stick to the schedule they've been running, what time would that happen?
Noon at the time that
Noon.
they hope you will not be available. And many of you will not be available because noon is a hard time. But if you're available and you can be there, it's always greatly appreciated to show that, what they're trying to do will not be done under the cover of darkness.
And I saw an online discussion saying that they were going to close the doors at 11:30. Did that really happen? Do you have to be there that early? And if you want to speak and get one of those precious 6 slots, do you have to be there the day before?
I mean, it didn't used to be like that, right? Make them boring again. That would be great. I don't want to say you have to camp out like a concert to get a speaking spot, but for this particular meeting, there probably is going to be a good crowd on each side. I would definitely suggest arriving early. You can message us to find out suggestions about how early. We won't be posting that information, but you do want to get there a little bit early. But you can only do what you can do. We don't all have hours in the day to dedicate to this cause. Like I said, the crowds that show up on their side are often in the retired bracket. And I love me some retired friends. I've got a lot of them. They are able to show up and do the work, but it is hard. It is hard for those of us who have, jobs out of the home during the day where we have to be somewhere and we can't be there. And childcare is another obstacle. I think you heard, some little kid voices in the background as some of those videos. And, we encourage our members, hey, they made this meeting at noon. You might have to have some kids at your meeting, and that's okay because you chose noon. And noon's kind of a hard time to get childcare when you probably have at least one parent working outside the home or in the home and can't do both parenting and working. So
the board is not a full-time job. These people must have jobs as well.
I would say a good bit of our board is also retired.
They're all retired.
And obviously retirement comes with the benefits of you now have time to serve your community in the ways of the board, right? Would we love to see some more diversity on our board? That would be amazing. It would be amazing. Right now, it's a very old white male board. No offense, Gary. But a lot of our boards do have that composition. It would be great to see some diversity in all the ways. That could be a little bit more representative of the people of York County. But again, most people don't know that boards exist. And if you're not publicizing board opportunities as they come about and you're only handpicking your friends and your political allies, well, you're filling the spots, you're doing your job as a council member, but is it doing justice to your county and your constituents? Probably not.
Yeah. Looking at the list of the members, I believe it's 4-3 female to male.
Yeah, we do have some female representation. Yeah. So
they're all Republicans.
The females on the board are the ones who will sometimes question and say, hey, I think our bylaws say this, or, oh, you know what, I'm going to actually give Terry that second on his motion, because most often when Terry Plum makes a motion, nobody seconds it. Yeah. And a second isn't, I agree with you. A second is, let's discuss it, fellow board member. You brought up a motion. I'm going to give you the respect to discuss it. Most of the times, his motions that are very library supportive do not get a second. But when they do, it's not one of the men. It's one of the females.
Yeah,
that's true.
So it is some female representation, but it is all lily white.
Yeah, put your shades on. It's pretty bright in there.
Yeah. In a county that is, I don't know, what's our percentage, 25, 30% minority? It's, somewhere up there. And libraries are places where people go because you can go there without having to be able to afford to buy all the books that you want to own yourself.
Right.
So,
right. It's a community resource.
Yeah.
Right. In all the ways. And I think a lot of our board members, aside from Terry, they just didn't know all the ways in which libraries serve a community. They've had contentious conversations about hotspots, which they don't believe we should really have available, not really understanding the need for hotspots in rural York County. And for those of lower, economic status, right? They need access to those. And there's like a lot of confusion about the purpose and service of a library, the function within a community. They think it's a place where the books live, and that is it. I think they've learned a lot along the way, and that's pretty awesome. But it's not coming out in their actions and their work on the board.
Are we expecting any more serious culture war activity to happen from this board?
Sometimes it's a slippery slope.
I think once they do this policy, they're going to move on to another policy. I expect they'll say that there's going to be a special children's card and a special adults card. So if you don't have your parent with you, you won't be able to check out any books from the adult section. So a 17-year-old would not be able to check out a Stephen King book.
So their argument was, we move these books to the adult section, but the kids can go there because their parents can, the parents should be watching what they're doing and can help them out. But you got to drag the parent along. That's going to be a different story.
And parents are not going to go to an adult section to access a child or teen book.
Yeah.
That's not, when I go to the library, I'm not thinking I'm looking for books for my child. I'm going to go look in the adult section. Like, that's not where you keep children's books and teen books, right? You keep them in the appropriate section. So it's going to limit access to these books. It's going to limit the awareness that these books exist and are available for checkout.
All right. Anything else that you guys want to bring up? I have something I want to do that's might be a little fun. I might be a little fun. I'm not sure. Anything else that you guys want to bring up before we start with that? Okay.
And we've covered a lot, Gary.
Yeah.
We did. Well,
there's still a lot to cover, but
yeah,
it's probably good for today.
Yeah. So, but basically, if there's anybody out there, well, for one thing, I was going to say that tomorrow, we're recording this on Monday. Tomorrow, not sure when the video is going to come out, but you're going to come visit my old folks up here in Carolina Orchards, a retirement community. Maybe you'll pick up a few more of those retired people that can show up. I know some of them have been. They've been talking about it quite a bit.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will happen. But around the rest of the county, other folks, if you want to help out, well, how would they get in touch with you?
They can reach out to us via the website. There is a function on there. They can send us a message.
Okay. What was that website address again?
GrowYCLibraries.com.
Yep.
Is that right?
YC Libraries with an S?
Yes.
.com. Okay. I'll have it on the screen. Everybody will be able to see it, but we do have an audio audience that won't be able to see all the pictures. All right. So hopefully you'll be able to get there. Now, I want to look at a couple of books. We're going to look at one that is in the library that that Katie Rutland showed me, and this is one that Tom Audette was complaining about. Most of the time, we don't actually get to look at what's really in these books that are at issue. So I thought I'd take a look at this one. It's called UBU, A Kid's Guide to Gender, Sexuality, and Family. And this is one that the Republicans at the right wing are going to say is unacceptable. Children should not be seeing this unless their parents specifically bring it to them. This looks like a children's book in the preteen zone, just based on the pictures. But let's take a little bit of a look at what's in here. I'm not going to dig deeply into the text and mostly want to look at some of the pictures because they're sort of worrying about what's in the text, but it is the pictures, I think, that are giving them a heartburn. And, we're looking at families and it's noticing that families can be made up of all kinds of people, not just straight heterosexual families. And here's where, Tom Audette brought this picture up before the council, this naked man, naked woman, fully exposed right there before kids. And if you're in the audio audience, they are simple cartoon line drawings of a man and a woman, and they're not fully exposed because the genitals aren't there. The internal organs are being shown, not the external genitals, and you won't see that anyplace in this book. And they'll talk about fluid gender identity, and this is something that the Republicans don't believe actually is a thing. They think that there's Adam and it's not Adam and Eve, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and anything gender fluid doesn't exist and is a corruption of the family, and kids shouldn't know about it. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that they're complaining about. And if you look through it, would you call this propaganda? Would you call it attempting to foist a value on someone?
Looks like information about gender identity to me, which exists. LGBTQ plus youth exist. There's no switch that flips when they turn 18 and they're, oh, now I'm LGBTQ plus. No, they've been often from a very early age, and at some point they learn to recognize and verbalize and identify. And books like this are going to help children, teens, and families navigate that understanding. They're going to help facilitate healthy and appropriate discussions about that identity. And when you are raised in a household where we can have discussions and we have an understanding and an openness about gender, that's going to be great, right? That's going to really, nurture that healthy development from whatever that gender journey looks like for that child. And it could be more difficult maybe in some families where that's not accepted and that's not supported, because those children may not want to have those discussions within their families. They might seek representation and, what's going on with me in media, right? I would prefer that my children learn from me, but if they're not comfortable with that, books are a great place to do that, right? Once you set them free on the web and they are searching this stuff on the internet, my goodness, are they going to come across much information, not necessarily accurate, not healthy and developmentally appropriate, probably going to have a good bit of porn and inappropriate imaging. That's not stuff you're going to find on our library shelves. Our professional librarians are going to curate our collections so that they are age relevant and age appropriate. If they don't align with your values, okay, not every book on the shelf aligns with my values, that's okay, right? We can have those healthy discussions with our children and teens. We just don't want them to access this information in unhealthy ways. And a lot of the times, the loudest about this issue, maybe their 10-year-old got an iPhone for their birthday, right? And maybe there's not a lot of supervision and access to what they have access to. I would be way more worried about their digital access to information than I would be on what's on the shelves in our library. But again, it all comes back to parental responsibility, right? We have to be responsible for our own children. If you don't want a book for your kid, you don't let your kid read it.
It's fine.
Do not take access to that book from my child, because where are my rights? My rights are now being violated. My child's rights are being violated.
We believe that gender identity is a real thing, and that a child growing up can feel a different gender identity than what's assigned by their physical biological sex. We believe that someone can grow up attracted to the same sex or have gender fluidity. Republicans tend to think that's not a thing, and that's a disease that needs to be cured. But having Republican parents, having highly conservative Republican parents, doesn't guarantee that a child will never have those gender issues. They still could.
And I know we say we believe and they believe, but truly, let's come back to science. Like, what does the medical profession say? What do scientists say? And there is a lot of information in the medical community that supports gender affirming care, and that supports and the understanding of what we know about gender identity, what we're seeing in those books, right? And so that's just science. So they cannot believe it, but science is science, and our trusted medical professionals, this is what they support. And so obviously they've tried to, make trouble there when it comes to gender affirming care with, access to that in our state, and that there's been attacks at not just the library level, obviously. Our trans people are being attacked at every level, and it's unfortunate and something needs to happen, but this is kind of where we're at. So yes, it's us, our beliefs, it's their beliefs. But when we come back to what does the science say? There are facts. There are research and evidence-based practices and information. If we look to that, that's kind of where the facts are. But again, this board seems to be anti-facts.
Yeah. And that's why I say I believe, because I've had my own experiences growing up, my 75 years worth of experience, and some of that has to do with gender identity and sexuality. But I don't have across the board experience with everybody. I listen to the science, and that's why I say I believe. I think it's true. I think that's what educated scientific community has brought to us. Okay, so the other book. This is not in the library. I don't know if it ever will be. The reason I know about it is the author worked for a company that a relative worked for and told me about this just the other day. And I thought, okay, I'll take a look and see what's in this book. The title, especially for those of you in the audio audience, is called Eddie the Unwoke Eagle. And the author is Mickey Scornavacho. And on the picture is, besides the title, there is a very stern-looking American eagle with his arms folded in front of an American flag. Eddie the Unwoke Eagle. Let's see what the story is. I've only got 10 pages of this because this is what's available on Kindle to look at as a preview. And I wasn't going to send the guy enough money to buy it, but it would only be $10 as a Kindle book or $30 as a paper book. Okay, so first page. Eddie the Eagle was proud and free. Does anybody else want to read these? Anybody
I don't want to be indoctrinated today, Gary.
Oh, you're going to be, whether I read it or not. Eddie the Eagle was proud and free. He loved his flag and his big oak tree. He soared through skies of red, white, and blue and told the truth like good birds do. Okay, the poetry is a little pedestrian. He went to school with Owl and Bear, with Chip the Chipmunk, and Fox with Flair. They studied hard and played with pride until one day the weird arrived. Uh-oh. The weird. What's the weird going to be? It's a squirrel with a leaf growing out of the top of its head wearing a pink dress. And below that is Eddie the Eagle looking very distressed. A squirrel stood up in bright pink lace. I'm not a boy. I'm not one place. I'm a tree today. My pronouns are they. Eddie gagged and flew away. I'm not getting a lot of reaction here, but
I'm trying not to look directly at it.
Yeah, I can see everybody's got their heads turned away. They're averting their gaze. So
libraries are for everyone, and I'm sure while this book is not on the shelves of our library, I'm sure there are books with similar beliefs, values, and concepts. And that's great. If my child picked that up off the shelf, I might breeze through that and say, this isn't a book that I really want us to read for X, Y, and Z. Do you want to sit down and read some of it? We could chat about it. But that's not one that, I would pick out for my child. And just like, people would say the same for some of the books I might choose for my children, and that's okay. But, freedom, right? Intellectual freedom. Mm-hmm. We can be responsible for what we're consuming, for what our children and teens are consuming. And if you are very concerned that there are things, that you can't read every book and you can't preview because you can't, like time, right? We don't have time for that. Then you don't allow your children and teens to have free reign of the library because that's a you issue. That's not a everyone at the library issue.
Yeah. You might actually, if you want to show your kids what's going on the other side of the world, actually bring this book home and say, this is what other kids are being exposed to. Maybe it's a good idea for you to see. Only a couple more pages. I'm going to force you to watch. The audio audience, or the audio audience is good. The video audience, they disappeared a long time ago. Eddie gagged and flew away. He didn't fly too far away because now he's standing in front of the squirrel and lecturing it. His size has changed considerably. He was very small on this picture, and now he's towering over the poor little squirrel. Eddie stepped forward, calm and clear. You're not a tree, let's make that clear. You're a squirrel with paws and a tail, not some leafy made-up tail. We're not addressing the pink dress yet. I'm not sure if we will. Okay, so now we're in front of the a little tent, a fort, kind of forts we used to grow up with. On the fort says no yelling, no thinking, no truth allowed. And I think the bear is in there, the chipmunk is in there, and there's a squirrel. Then Skunk popped up with a cardboard tent. No yelling, no clapping, no argument. This is a safe space. Just sit and hug. And he rolled his eyes and dodged a bug. This is a safe space. Apparently a safe space is a very bad thing. That's the message that I'm getting from this.
Mm-hmm.
Life's not safe, said Eddie, bold. You got to be tough when the world gets cold. Truth can sting, but lies go sour. Real strength grows in the hardest hour. First of all, how's my narration?
You read very well.
Very good inflection.
A little too good.
I think this is hard for me as an educator, just knowing that we have students that deal with this pressure, this force to be away, this movement against their existence is just really, it's hard.
Yeah, I don't know how well this book sells, and I have not investigated the rest of the stuff and things that are in the library. It's something I think we'd be better off knowing more about. But let's at least finish this one off. The forest held a running race. Fox flew fast at a blazing pace. Sloth just yawned and stayed behind. But everybody got a prize. Good grief, Eddie sighed. If no one loses, no one learns. Trophies are things that a winner earns. You don't grow strong from silly cheers. You build that grit through blood and tears. Blood? What age level are we talking about here? Blood? And let's see. In history class, things turned dark. They tore down flags. They lit no spark. The founders were gone. The truth was banned. No more pride for this great land. He uses the word bride a couple times. I'm not sure he understands the full implication. Is there more? Yeah, one more. Eddie flapped down with fire and light. You don't erase what's built that's right. We honor those who made us free. Don't bury truth with make-believe. Enjoying the sample? Okay.
I am not enjoying this sample.
No, not at all.
It just goes to show you anybody can get a book published. So, you aspiring authors out there, go for it. You too can publish a book that probably doesn't show up on the review selections for libraries and bookstore shelves. But, if you write something that is reflective of the values of a majority of the community, maybe it will. And you have to write well, and you have to have great illustrators. So A for effort, but I would be so sad for my own children to read that and think, this is real life. But maybe a good, like you said, a good catalyst for some discussion about critical thinking, how we all have different beliefs. Diversity of thought is important.
We would
just like non-indoctrination books.
Yeah, we would be hypocrites if we said that book should be banned, because that's the whole point, is that every book should be allowed, every train of thought should be allowed, but as parents, we should be taking the time to discuss those books with our children. My son's 14, and so there are certain books that I've said, well, let's read it together. We'll read it at the same time, and then we'll discuss it afterwards. And that's what we do. So I almost he's a little bit more mature. He's allowed to read a lot as long as he agrees to discuss it, because I know there's going to be some topics that maybe he hasn't thought about before. But that's, as a parent, that's our job. If we're concerned with what our children are consuming, then we need to make sure that we're right alongside them at the library. We're looking at what they checked out, and we're going, not so sure about this. Let's talk about it when you're done reading it. Or I've had to tell my daughter, you're not quite ready for that yet. We're going to wait a little bit, and we'll check that out in a couple of years. And that's what you're supposed to do. The library is not a childcare center. You don't get to drop your kid off and then be offended when they come home with a book that you don't like if you weren't there.
Yeah. And censorship is about control.
Yep.
So, the banning, the moving, it's all censorship. Restricting access. Not everyone can go to Amazon or, has access to a school library. you know, the public library is supposed to be that that third place that we can go. We can have our kids there. We can participate and do things. I don't have a problem with the book. It's not my favorite.
I know we are about to wrap up. I actually have to dash. I have to head to the York County Council meeting. It's tonight, so I didn't tell you all about it because this is gonna.
I gotta go too. I gotta pick up my daughter.
Yep. Well, I think we're done. I'll thank you guys for being here and talking about this issue. Lacey, Laura, and Stephanie.
Thank you, Gary, for highlighting the library.
Yes,
where we are.
We appreciate you.
Well, that's why it's an update. It has been too long. You know, we looked at it a couple years ago and then left you guys at your own devices. Turns out you've got a lot of good devices. You've done a good job, and I'm glad to bring this back to the York County Democratic Party's YouTube show and show everybody. And I will let you get off to your meeting. Thank you, the audience out there, for watching, and everybody wave goodbye. This is the York County Democratic Party YouTube show and podcast. We call it YCDP TV. Over and out.
A naked man fully exposed, a naked woman fully exposed.